So today I have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Angelica Crottini. She got a PhD at the University of Milan and then did a postdoc in Braunschweig and eventually ended up here in Portugal. You have published, I was trying to look up how many papers you've published. I got somewhere around 200, is it correct?
No, 150, I think, is more correct.
Well, yeah, Google said 150 and other things said 200, but it's ridiculous. Come on. So she publishes prolifically and she does most of her work in Madagascar, working on frogs, but also other creatures lately. Some reptiles, but it's all Madagascar, always. So what is it about Madagascar? Why Madagascar?
Because Madagascar is a fantastic place. So first of all, I have to say, it's a fantastic place in general, but it's also true that I've really grown up with being totally fascinated by Madagascar.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's really as stupid, let's say, as that. So basically, I think I was like something 3 or 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a brother which is much older than me, and he had a book about the wildlife that was threatened. And I was just, spending my time reading this and thinking, I got one day completely fascinated. I was like, as I said, 3-4 years maybe. But these are 2 pages about Madagascar. So they totally stole my attention completely. And I still remember, I still have the book, obviously, at home, but I was completely fascinated. There was a furcifer chameleon and the eye. And those for me, they were like, wow. So if there is a place where I want to be, that's Madagascar. And basically, this is really, completely, drove the direction of my life.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, we got to know each other when we were collaborating with Essence. And you were already working on Madagascar things, but it went back that far.
Yeah.
That was just 4 years of age. Wow.
So I got completely obsessed by Madagascar. So I was begging my parents to take me to libraries to read about Madagascar. I wanted picture of animals from Madagascar. And so it was basically like this. So, so I was completely obsessed by Madagascar. Yes, and remain.
So how many times have you been, more or less?
I think maybe 8 or 9 is not really that much, okay, in terms of yes, but I mean, I had the luck, basically. So the thing is this one, I've been working for a long time. I mean, the diversity of Madagascar is just crazy. And so, especially when we are speaking about amphibian and reptiles. So it really took me ages to become familiar to the diversity of Madagascar that I felt I was confident enough to be able to go in the field and do something meaningful with that. And so my first time to Madagascar was in 2001.
Okay.
And so now 22 years ago almost, it's quite scaring to look in that way. And so I was still a student at the university. And again, it was, they were organizing during the university like a field course. And I still remember I saw this advertising in the atrium of the university. Again, it was a Furcifer pardalis.
It's for the people who don't know, yeah.
Panther chameleon.
Yeah.
And again, I was saying, wow, so this must be something about Madagascar. So then I enrolled in that course and we went to Mazoala, which is an amazing place in the northeast of Madagascar. And basically we had been, it was quite nice because it was at the time that they were doing this super cool project of, the name was the Radeau de Plate. And so basically it was a world expedition. And they were kind of putting up on the canopy of the forest of 5 amazing places of the world, like it was Brazil. Exactly, it was Brazil, it was Congo, it was Madagascar, Indonesia, and if I'm not wrong, Queensland, Australia. something like this. And we end up by coincidence. They were working in Masuala in the period that we were there with this field course. So I even had the opportunity, and while I was a student, to really get to know what the real scientists were doing, and it was super cool. And see all the things that they were discovering.
And was it as great as you thought it would be when you were here?
Much better. Much better. The real life is even much better, because I think really until you do not get to understand, I think is so the diversity and the unknown diversity that there is still in Madagascar is completely mind-blowing. And I think that until you do not really work in Madagascar and are aware of this gap, you are not really fully, uncovering the potential of this, understanding fully the potential of this site, totally. So, I mean, I might be a bit biased, of course, but this is also part of my...
And have you been to other jungles in the world to compare, or?
Not really, well, I've been in a couple of places that can be of interest, but not really tropical areas.
Nothing that compares to Madagascar.
And I said I'm obsessed with Madagascar. So,
so for the people who have never been to Madagascar, which is most people in the world, including me, what's it like there? What is it like to be in Madagascar?
Well, I mean, doing fieldwork. Well, fieldwork can be quite challenging because, of course, the infrastructure in Madagascar are not very well developed, and I mean, basically there are a few roads. There used to be railway, but is now basically used mostly only for goods. So I would say the general infrastructure is not very good. It's also true that I mean, Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world, and of course, this it's what really make also the place quite challenging, both in terms, I would say, logistically, but I think also in terms of how can I say, like really in terms of challenging for a new people that go to Madagascar to do fieldwork, because you basically face a completely different reality and can be like a bit of a shock, I think, for several.
Because of the poverty?
Because of the poverty and the different challenges that the people that you will inevitably be working with, they are facing, and to which you will be obviously have to consider, or at least think about it. Well, I mean, the struggling for life, so really, do not have enough food to feed your family, or do not have medicine for your sick kid, and these type of things. So it's all pressure that if you stay in a place for long enough to build some kind of relationship, of course, they can be challenging. I mean, of course, if someone go to Madagascar once and come back, maybe you do not really have this perception, right? But if you go repeatedly, so if you go repeatedly in a place, for example, it's shocking for me to see that, as I said, is 22 years the time span that I know Madagascar, that I went there the first time. And I mean, it's shocking to know that there are forests that I saw that are not existing anymore.
No. So it's a common misconception of Madagascar that it's all like a big jungle island, but it's not. It's really not. It's just a little eastern edge which is green, and all the rest is very dry.
Yes. It's very dry, and a lot of it, let's also put it in this way. It's also true that the part that is dry, there are several areas that still are super interesting and that still hold some native vegetation and are still hosting lots of beautiful biodiversity. But it's true that, there is a lot of deforestation going on, and and so a lot of destruction.
And all the deforestation is happening in that very small part of Madagascar, which is green, because it's a big island, but the jungle is quite small. Okay, so I have people. So just to put the people who listen in Madagascar, it's hot, I presume.
Well, it depends where you are, but and in the time of the period where you are of the year. Yes. So if you are on in Tana, the Antananarivo, the capital of Madagascar, and if you are there during our boreal summer, then then it's cold, right? Because the capital lays on a high plateau of.
And how cold are we talking here?
I would say
Totally
not freezing, but it can be quite cold. Yes, so not freezing, but and I know that there are a few records anyway of snow every now and then.
Wow. So people tell me that Madagascar smells of vanilla.
That again, it depends where you are. So if you are up in the north of Madagascar, yes, then it will smell about vanilla. If you are in the west, no way that you will gonna see an orchid. Yeah, so it really depends on because that's also the thing of Madagascar is we think it is an island and we might not really fully understand the extent, the dimension that this piece of land has. So it's a really big island. So lots of also climatically is extremely heterogeneous. So we have extreme heat in some areas, and then we have a very monsonic weather in the east, and cold almost as you said in the mountain. So it's really heterogeneous.
And the Betampona Nature Reserve. Yeah, I had the Madagascar names are just
Tampona.
There you go. Betampona Nature Reserve. What's that like? Is that the jungle?
Yes, it is jungle. Actually, Betampona is one of the last forest fragment of a low altitude forest in Madagascar. It's really a really tiny piece of a forest, completely, surrounded by deforested areas. So it's really an island, basically. Betampona is a kind of island within the island of Madagascar. And what is amazing about Madagascar is really the diversity that it hosts at all levels. So if you go for lemurs, there are 12 species of lemurs. We are speaking of an area, just to give an idea, is 5 kilometers per 5, so it's a 25 square kilometer.
I mean, you can walk past it.
Yeah, now. So it is 12 species of lemurs. So we are speaking of the largest mammals of Madagascar, native mammals of Madagascar. We have 82 species of amphibians, 70 species of reptiles.
And you've been there several times, right? Back in 2013, you had a bit of a hairy moment. You were doing a reptile inventory. I think I remember seeing the pictures.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. Yeah. So it was super cool. It was an expedition that I did with quite a lot of people, of colleagues that they were here in Sibiu, or that are still here in Sibiu. That is the place where I'm also currently based. So basically we mounted this expedition to go and catalog the reptile diversity of Betampona, and we did this expedition over a period of 5 weeks. And the idea
5 weeks in the jungle.
Yes.
Camping, sleeping in the jungle, eating in the jungle.
That's what we want.
Right.
It was very funny because to be a little bit more, so at the time it was, as you said, 2013. So I had my daughter in a couple of years before. So I was feeling a bit bad to leave her baby for a long period alone with the father. So I really wanted to try to optimize the time. Ideally, my plan was, not my plan, but the plan of the expedition was to survey each of what we call campsite in Betampona for at least 5 days, but there are 7 campsites, so it would have required us at least 8 weeks, consider also the logistic to go there, and I thought it was a little bit too much. So in order to shorten it, I organized this expedition where we would have been in many more people. And the idea was that we would have a split in 2 main groups, and each group was leading the surveys in 3 or 4 areas of the forest. And of course, Betampona is a strict nature reserve. Nobody can access Betampona without, if not for research reasons. So you can't go there as a tourist. It's really a fantastic place. Almost pristine, almost, I'm saying, because, obviously, being so small, it's obvious that there are quite a lot of, influence of pressure from the outside. But basically, so we spent there this time monitoring. We organized basically these 2 teams, and each team was there mandatory with guides. So basically, all the reserves in Madagascar are managed by Madagascar National Park. It's like the supervisor and the authority that give also permission, to visit the place and stay there studying. And mandatory, you need to be there with some guides. Okay. Also because, alone. Although Betampona is small, probably we would not really be able to find that much. But basically, so we were there with the guides, both of the organization that is managing the reserve and also people of Madagascar National Park. And but at one point it happened that our field guide got really sick. So so basically at the time what we did was Betampona is very hilly, and we were setting a pitfall and drift fence to try to maximize our chances to also collect fossorial reptiles and amphibians, who knows. And but then, of course, when you set these tools in the field, you need to regularly visit these let's say, infrastructure. Because, of course, if you can't leave animals for longer period into the pits. Exactly. So basically, the plan was once we were opening the pitfall, we would be visiting them at least twice a day. The morning, early in the morning, and then after dusk. And so the point was that I was in the field with these 2 other colleagues, and our guide fell really sick. So it was typhoid fever. So it was he was really miserable. And so it was dusk. We really had to go basically visiting our 3 lines of drift fence and pitfall to see and eventually remove the animals that were there. And although of course, as I said, the place is small, but it's often common in forest, in very complex system, to kind of lose,
absolutely.
The references, the geographic references. Anyway, we said, okay, what shall we do? The guide cannot really guide us but we said, okay, but we are free. We know more or less where they are. We did it already a couple of days. Let's do it alone. And it was me and my other 2 European team members. And it went miserably bad.
What happened? You didn't find them?
We didn't find them, and we got completely lost. We did not even reach the first.
And this was after dusk, you said, right?
It was after dusk.
Okay, sure.
So we were completely lost. And so we were there. I totally, at the beginning we said, well, but we can't really be lost, right? We walk not more than a couple of minutes, so we can be far away.
Oh, yes, you can.
But then basically, we were walking with our flashlight and so on, and in reality, we couldn't really recognize anything. So at a certain point, we said, okay, so we will stop. We found a stone. Well, we will stop, of course. Once we will have light, it will probably be very easy to find our campsite. But in the meantime, we can shout. And that's what we did. And, when we organize this type of expedition, we also have a cook that come with us that is basically, really taking care of the campsite and also providing us some logistic and so on. So we tried to shout, and our super cook Maneri finally have yeah, I mean, he heard us, and then he came to collect us. But all this story took us like, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, and it was enough to be scared.
That is worse.
And embarrassed, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here saying this, right? I'm totally shameless of this thing.
What did the cook say when he left?
No, it was very funny. He was laughing. And then it was very funny that the next day he brought us to the stone where we were. And we realized it was really no more than 400 meters. Seriously.
Wow. Well, otherwise he couldn't have heard you from the shouting. I mean,
Exactly. It was so much fun. I mean, it was scary, but at the same time, we were also feeling like, gosh, really? I mean, we are really so bad. We didn't walk more than 2 minutes.
yeah, more.
But well, I mean, what you have to do? I mean,
If you lose your bearing, then you're gone. I mean, I had that once in the deserts in the US. There were all these bushes. They were like 3 meters high. They're all the same.
No.
And there's just blue sky above you, and there's in 30 meters I was lost. It was amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. But it's actually quite nice, I think. I mean, honestly, I think that beside everything, I mean, it was quite. I think it gave me a nice perception of really how we are not used anymore to be in such complex ecosystems. So on a way, it was really a nice, input that I got. So that's why.
Bit of a wake-up call.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oy, oy, oy. And that was the scariest moment. But then you went back. Yeah, so you were in Betampona Nature Reserve again in 2019, looking at vegetation.
So this also is super funny because, I mean, as you see, I mean, I'm really not ashamed to say the bad story about me that prove my. So I sometimes try to pretend that I'm an expert, but then with all these podcasts, basically I'm.
Nobody will listen to this podcast. Don't worry now.
So no, it's very funny. It's also super funny. So the best season to go and sample amphibian and reptiles in Madagascar is October, November.
Okay.
Because these basically correspond to the beginning of the spring for the Australian season, obviously. And so I have to say all my expedition of Madagascar up to 2019 were done in this period. So my experience was entirely based on Madagascar spring.
Yeah, spring. Yeah.
Completely. But then, as you said, so this expedition was about plant, and I mean, it's not because I decided to change the subject. It's simply because, as I said now, so in Betampona is really one of these areas where I have a really long-term commitment. So it's an area where I keep working since more than I started the first time. The first expedition I had there was in 2007. So, and then I visited there several times after that. So it's really a place where I keep going. And we have excellent connection. There is an NGO that is managing the reserve and provide a lot of logistics. So we have a lot. This also means that we have lots of data for the reserve and the amphibian and reptiles of the reserve. And one of the things that I came across is that there was a survey done at the beginning. I think it was 2009, where basically they mapped the forest coverage in a set of areas of the forest. And basically my idea was, okay, now we have built the information about amphibian and reptile species richness, but also abundances because of a long-term project that we have there. And so I thought it would have been nice to have a snapshot again 10 years later of how the forest and the vegetation complexity has changed, and then see whether we could basically find some hints about, either amphibian or reptiles, species richness, community composition, and that type of things. So, of course, for that expedition, I needed to have, it was really not relevant to have any, it wasn't, the idea of this expedition was really not about sampling amphibian and reptiles. It was collecting data on plants. So I worked with the people team of botanists from Missouri Botanical Garden. Yeah. And basically I was there mostly, to coordinate, to help basically them understand which were really my needs in terms of what I wanted to do. So I was a kind of, I don't know, like a field organizer type of a thing. So I was not really there. So the research type of thing was not really. So it also means that I could do this thing whenever, in whatever period of the year. Right. And again, so I always try when I go to fieldwork to also carry with me my daughter. And but of course, it's always a bit of a trade-off because then she's in school, so I don't want, to keep her out of school too much. So you always, sometimes, yes.
Well, very cool that you can go to Madagascar with you. Very cool.
And so I said, this fieldwork, since I'm not really targeting amphibian and reptiles, I can do it in summer, like boreal summer. That is winter. And funnily enough, they in Madagascar, in the east coast, and all around Madagascar, they call their winter the saison sèche, so the dry season.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so let's go in the dry season. I don't really mind if there are no few animals. And differently from what I was doing generally, I said, they call it dry season, it will be relatively dry, probably.
You would think.
I was thinking that. But I think that basically I was miserably wrong. So I've never had so much rain in all my life. There were leeches dropping on us constantly. It was pouring rain all the time. Rain and leeches, yes. And both me and my daughter, we were terribly bad equipped for water.
Wow.
So, for example, it was the first expedition I had. I didn't brought with me rubber boots.
Who expects this in the dry season?
Then, I dig a little bit more about the name, and apparently it's simply dry season because in the west of Madagascar it's not raining, but in the east it doesn't really matter. So basically, my daughter now, if I tell her that we go in the dry season in Madagascar, he tells me that I'm crazy and she will never come with me again.
Was it that bad?
It was really,
So how long were you there? You were camping in the jungle again?
Yes, 3 weeks with mud up to the knees.
Wow. And leeches falling
on top of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so that it has been quite fun.
And how old was your daughter at that?
So it was 2019, so 8. Yeah. So yeah, she has something to tell to her friends.
Which 8-year-old has done that?
Super funny. Another very funny thing about this thing is, so we also brought some type of treat for the fieldwork. It's always nice to bring something that, one day, or maybe because you finish to sample this area or so on, you have a small treat.
Yes.
And so we decided to take, we had a tin of corn and flour, and we bake cornbread in the forest for celebrating. And there was even leeches falling into the dough. So my daughter was, oh no, there is this one as well. There is another one.
She'd probably be looking forward to that for a week. And then leeches fall into here. Oh. Well,
the bread though.
She is not going to grow up to be a squeamish woman. She has already experienced everything.
But she told me, I will never go again. In not dry season anymore for me in Madagascar.
Wow. Oh yeah, leeches falling. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. And then you also went to a little bit more of a dry place, which is not in the jumbo part, all the way in the east of Madagascar, but a bit across the mountains where there's in the rain shadow the Anya Community Reserve. Anja. See, I knew I would be pronounced correctly. This is so small, I must be able to pronounce it correctly. Nothing in Madagascar is weird.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, that it was really quite amazing. So this, the first visit I had in Anja Community Reserve was in 2009. So we had I had this incredible opportunity. I was at the time postdoc in Braunschweig University, and basically my role was simply for 2 months, simply being in Madagascar, traveling, and identifying amphibians and reptiles. So it was my best field course, the best field course I could have. Yeah, amazing, amazing. It was really amazing. And basically that was it was the end of our trip. And on the way back so it's not really terribly, it's really on the main road of Madagascar. Is, I would say, around 1 day still travel to Tana, the capital, from where then we would have left. And on the way to the south, we spot this reserve, but it's really something super, super tiny. And then we said, well, now we don't have time, but on the way back, let's just stop there. Even just to know the people and see what they know about the animals, amphibians and reptiles that are there. So we just stopped for lunch, and it was super funny because, I ordered my omelette au fromage, and while they were cooking it, we went all to have a tour to this forest, but literally it's like, you do all the tour in like half an hour. Okay. Nothing. It's super small. Basically, it's a huge, Anja Reserve is a huge boulder, like a kind of dome, and then on the hills, on the foothills, there is this patchy remaining of deciduous forest. And it was absolutely amazing because that has never happened to me before. So basically, in maybe from 5 to 10 minutes, I discovered 3 new species of reptiles. But these are type of animals that. So it's not that you need to go back to the lab, to the genetic and say, this is a bit different, so we might describe it. So they were completely. So in the field, I saw these animals and I say, yes, this is new species, no doubt about it.
No microscope required.
No, nothing.
Counting scales.
Nothing. It was really.
What was it?
So it was Parageira felicite. Mm-hmm. Which was also quite nice because back then there used to be only 2 species of Parageira described for Madagascar, and both of them were coming from the coast. So we thought it was a genus that got.
It's a gecko word.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I forgot it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's a gecko. And we thought it was only living on the coastal area, and instead I found it really basically in the total inner side of inner part of the island. And so already for that, with the regionalism that there is in Madagascar, having recognized the genus, I immediately know that it was something different because, exactly. And then it was another gecko of the genus Phelsuma, which are very popular, very brightly colored. This is a new species that I found is not, so it's a part of a clade that is a little bit more discreet. It's not the bright green, but still quite a nice one, and it had really a very, really a typical color pattern that I've never seen before, pictures and things.
Yeah, so you knew immediately.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was a chameleon.
Oh, just to chop it off.
Exactly. So Bruchesia is a leaf litter chameleon. Yeah. It's not really the super tiny because among the tiny chameleon in Madagascar, there are 3 main groups. two were relatively large for a small chameleon, and one are the extremely tiny one. So it's not it's not really the group of the tiny one. Is these small size. But no. We are speaking of 3-4 centimeters or something like that. Yeah.
So that's amazing. So after that, you were,
So I was super happy. I was so excited. I said, this is the best thing that could happen to me.
3 species during lunch.
Yeah, during lunch, amazing. And on the main street of Madagascar, for me, this is what is completely mind-blowing about the place. That sometimes you really just need, an eye in a place. I mean, it's not really about accessibility or not in Madagascar. It's still really a bit of investigation and also field investigation. Because, probably, although it was on the main route, nobody had really it's also so tiny that maybe, they said it was, they just didn't happen.
No, and there has to be somebody like you who actually recognizes the animals in order to know that it's a new thing.
So it was really cool. I think it's my best moment in terms of, taxonomic.
Well, I mean, discovering species of reptiles. I mean, discovering 3 species of flies or something is a different story, but 3 species of reptiles during lunch. Yeah, that's nice.
Plus, we had 2 more.
Oh?
Yes, so there was also another gecko, a ground gecko, which, it looked a little bit crazy, and I said, well, there is an opportunity that also this one is a new thing, but I knew it belonged to a group where a systematic revision was badly needed at the time. And it's actually something that we managed to do just a couple of years ago. Okay. And so in reality, the new species are 5 because those 2 geckos, I thought it was one gecko of one ground gecko. In reality, were 2 different things, and both of them were new again.
So you described all these species that you discovered during your little lunch egg, and that's among your 150, 200 published work.
Well, the last one is in publication now.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. But it will soon be. Yeah. Yeah. It's really.
Wow. That is okay. You've beat a lot of people. I think it's going to be a long time before somebody beats that. So, are you going back to Madagascar anytime soon?
Yes, I hope so. I still do not really know when, because unfortunately, with all this COVID break and so on, Madagascar has been closed for quite a lot of time. So it only opened the borders again in November 2021. And I had a lot of students basically that had to pause their work and their field work during it. So I'm trying basically to, how can I say, to prioritize their work, right? Because, they are obviously linked to projects that need to finish and so on. And I really have So
that's all the responsibility you have. You cannot go yourself. And
of course I could. The point is that the whole permitting issues in Madagascar is quite complex, which is on one side is good on the one, because it means that they take it seriously, obviously. So there is a lot of supervision and lots of investment in this from the side of authorities and controls. And so it means they, in a way, are aware of the and very, very, protective of their biodiversity, which is great. But then, the whole process requires quite a lot of time and investment, money investment, time investment, logistic investment. And for me, it's completely impossible to have more than 2 expeditions of a year organized in term. And at the moment, as I said, I had 3 PhD students that really had the need to be there for their PhD. So I tried to, plus a postdoc, and they had to be the one going there first to get there. So I help a lot in all this logistic part. But so I don't know. I hope if everything goes fine, I will be back in 2024. Sorry. 2020.
Okay.
Is my hope.
So
Yeah.
not this year, but after that, you're definitely going back, and maybe you'll be able to convince your daughter to join you.
She will. No, she will. She loves Madagascar as well.
Nobody loves Madagascar as much as you do, Angelica. If people want to follow your research, where do they find your stuff?
I mean, ResearchGate is the place where I really try to put all my research out. Yes, and ResearchGate, and they will find everything. I think it's nice that it's also all PDF available. If they're not directly able for download, you just send me a message and I will send them. And it's really the only place where I try to maintain.
And do you have like social media or something like this?
Quite bad with this.
Okay.
That's fun. I think so.
Well, Angelica, thanks a lot
Thank you.
for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I, as soon as I started this, I thought you have to be on the top of the list because I knew there were some good stories in there.
Excellent. It was really, really a pleasure for me to have this chat with you. And we'll follow the podcast as well because I'm very curious to hear also all the other story.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.